Today, I want to talk about one of the strangest experiences I've ever had when it came to gaming. Nothing happened that wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't playing Warframe, for example, and like a crazy glitch or the game broke or something. No, I just downloaded a game that I believed was a horror game, and it turned into one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had when it came to my gaming career. The game I'm talking about today is called BABBDI, and it's a game I want to talk about on this channel because throughout all my years of playing games, I don't think I've ever had an experience as unique as this one. BABBDI is a 3D open-world platformer that takes place in a city called, BABBDI. BABBDI itself is essentially a concrete jungle with nearly no vegetation, tons of abandoned buildings, rampant disease, and incredibly bland colors, with every building just being composed of concrete walls with little to no color literally anywhere. After looking into the design of the city further, I saw many people referring to it as brutalist architecture. And when looking up the definition of brutalism, I couldn't agree more. The description of brutalism I found on the internet is a style of architecture that originated in the 1950s and is characterized by its raw materials, geometric shapes, and lack of ornamentation. And when comparing the building designs and layouts of the buildings in BABBDI to real-life brutalist architecture, I think the similarities are staggering. However, the fictional city of BABBDI takes these structures to the next level and somehow creates some sort of ultra-brutalism. There is only concrete here. There's no vegetation and almost no grass. Every single building is connected, with random walkways of concrete protruding out of buildings at weird angles. Everything in this city looks the same, gray, angular masses, and it is meant to be as confusing as possible to navigate. Have you been in this room before? Did you just walk by this building? These are the questions you'll find yourself asking, and you'll likely only know you ended up in the same spot when you run into one of the few citizens that populate this desolate city. There isn't a whole lot of people populating the streets of BABBDI, especially when compared to the amount of buildings and rooms that are available to live in. When exploring the entirety of BABBDI, you'll only find 19 different individuals that you can interact with, and then just several more that you can't interact with. None of these citizens are particularly important, and only 2 or 3 are actually required to finish the game. So, what's the purpose of all these other characters that seemingly have no bearing on the objective of the game? Well, let's discuss what some of these NPCs are doing, and maybe that'll better explain why they're there. The first NPC you'll naturally interact with in this game is Ivana, who isn't much for conversation, but does offer you a baseball bat in order to help traverse the city. Okay, saying a baseball bat is a parkour tool might sound confusing, but I'll go ahead and explain that more later. Another NPC you'll probably find yourself interacting with is Asker, who tells you that he's secured train tickets so that he can leave BABBDI with his wife in order to get her the medical treatment that she needs elsewhere. Since there's a complete lack of medical supplies and staff in the city of BABBDI, in fact, I don't even believe there's a hospital in the city. Once you leave the apartment building that you start the game in, you'll probably encounter BABBDI, who can be seen squatting against the building smoking a cigarette. I'm not saying his name right, but I'm not familiar with his dialect, so I do apologize for that. BABBDI explains to you that you should travel the train station if you wish to leave BABBDI as well, which is the only way to leave the city according to the residents of the city itself. You can see several other NPCs around your apartment as well, including an elderly lady struggling to bring her groceries to her apartment, and a woman floating in a nearby pond. She's just floating and can't really be interacted with at all. In a different area of the city, you might run into Cinderella, who is getting sewer water in order to attempt to turn it into cooking oil so she can finally cook herself a warm meal. There are a large number of other NPCs, but they all serve the same purpose, to showcase the depressing and hopeless nature of those living in BABBDI. There is no future in the city, and the game uses the environment itself and the NPCs expertly to showcase this. While not everyone you interact with is depressed or involved in a seemingly sad event, they do all showcase the hopelessness of the city. Another NPC you might run into is named Lee Chong, who is sitting in one spot where a direct ray of sunshine hits the city, and seems content in getting that sunshine. While he himself isn't proposed to be extremely sad or depressed, the fact of him enjoying the single ray of sunshine showcases the depressing nature of the city of BABBDI. However, I don't want to get into every single detail of this game, because I honestly think it's a game worth checking out, and it's for free on Steam, so it doesn't really take much space on your computer either. So I recommend trying it out and seeing what interesting NPCs you can find that I didn't mention in this video, or other dark secrets. If you do this, please let me know what you found in the comments below. Anyway, now I want to move on to talking about the actual objective of the game. After everything I've described about BABBDI, you might infer it's some sort of horror game. However, while it is built to be extremely unsettling and surreal, this is actually a parkour game, where you're meant to swing around the concrete jungle of BABBDI and explore all over, with your objective being to find a way out of the city. Talking to NPCs and exploring are your best ways to try and find a way out, with most NPCs referring to the train as the only real way to escape your downward spiral of a life that you have in BABBDI. However, like I mentioned before, you don't really know where anything is, and the layout of BABBDI is incredibly confusing, which is completely on purpose. This will cause you to look all over for a way out, and a lot of this will involve parkour, like using your trusty baseball bat to bounce off of walls and floors to get more height on your jump. I have no clue why this works, but it does, and it's super fun to do. When you finally find the train station in BABBDI, you'll learn that you need to get a ticket to actually use said train, which then sends you on yet another hunt looking for the travel agent. Once you find the travel agent, he informs you that the governing body of BABBDI is no longer giving out tickets to leave the city, and that everyone there will simply have to stay. Thankfully, for your player character, you're lucky enough to learn of the death of Griselda, the wife of Asker. This is important because, well, now there's a ticket available to get out of BABBDI, probably the last one ever printed. You quickly head back to Asker, and he informs you that he no longer has any need for the ticket anymore, and he gives it to you. In the room behind him, you can see the body of his now dead wife, surrounded by bugs. After securing the ticket from Asker, you can head back to the train station and search for a better life, far removed from the dystopian city of BABBDI. I quickly want to touch on the gameplay of this game, and while there isn't a whole lot to talk about, I honestly think the movement feels fluid and fun, and the parkour functions themselves feel really good and are fun to use. But besides for parkour, there really isn't a whole lot going on. The entire gameplay loop of the game is just searching for hidden things and trying to find a way out. There isn't any combat, there isn't any danger, and there isn't even any fall damage. This game is just pure exploration of a brutalist, depressing city that has almost no future, with all inhabitants understanding that, but unwilling or unable to actually change their future paths. All that being said though, jumping and running through the depressing city is incredibly fun, and I spent several hours just screwing around and seeing where I could get when I played this game for the first time. And while the atmosphere and the weird feelings you get while you play this game are the biggest reasons you'll want to play, and the biggest reason I'm recommending the game to you, the actual gameplay itself is fun as well. BABBDI is a game meant for people who grew up in an area devoid of opportunities. You'll encounter similar acting people, a similar empty vibe, and the ruined and untaken care of buildings will be a familiar sight for you. Of course, unless you live somewhere in Eastern Europe, the architecture and brutalist designs probably won't ring home to you, but hey, regardless of the architecture, we can all understand that hopeless feelings of not being able to escape from where you grew up, and we all know people who say they are seemingly unable to leave, even though they understand they have no future where they're at. And if you do happen to be Eastern European, specifically somewhere that was at one point communist or under Soviet rule, some of these brutalist designs might seem familiar to you, and this game will hit even closer to home. With the large concrete angular structures and the hints that you find throughout the game that there might be some sort of corrupt government things going on, especially with your interactions with the travel agent. Overall, regardless of where you're from, I feel like there's certain strange, surreal things about this game that might hit home for you, and maybe they aren't the exact scenarios you're used to, but we all have people we've left behind in life. Or maybe we're the ones that have been left behind. And that's what the story of BABBDI is about. A story of leaving your past behind you, and a story about what happens to those who are left behind.